Great, thank you. I'm going to start with a question. We're going to be a little bit more interactive this session, try and keep people awake. The organizers asked me to do one thing, and one thing only, and that's to warm the group up a little bit. And I'm going to ask a question of Mr. Ryan. Thank you for volunteering. In a conference such as this, what is the most important session of the conference?
The last.
Rule number 1, never give a microphone to a lawyer. But what's the most important session, Tony?
Yours, Eric.
Wrong. The most important is the reception, because that's when you get to meet other people at the conference. The content is good that you come here for, right? But really the reception, meeting people, exchanging ideas is the most important thing, right? So what Manav and the committee asked me to do is to try and warm up the group a little bit for the most important session, right? Right, Rio? That is the most important session, right? Okay. So we've been sitting all day, we haven't been moving our jaws, we haven't been asking questions. We're going to have to ask some questions this session, all right? You're going to have to answer some questions. But first, let's everyone stand up for a second. Stand up quickly, let's move quickly. Everyone stand up. Good, good. Stand up, everyone up. Arms in the air, stretch. Come on, guys. We got to warm up. We have cocktails to drink soon. All right, twist the left. Twist the left. Twist the right. Good, good. All right, stay up, stay up. Don't go anywhere. On 3, I want to hear you make a lot of noise. Like your team just scored a goal, a try, hit a home run, whatever you want to call it. I want to hear it very loudly on 3. Let's make them wonder what's going on inside. 1, 2, 3. Oh, come on, that's only half an effort. That's only half an effort. Let's do better than that. Rio, do you have a team? What's your team? Just a second. What's your team? Do you have a team?
Barcelona.
Barcelona. And who's the arch enemy of Barcelona?
Real Madrid.
Real Madrid, okay. Everyone think that. Think of your team now, right? Think of your team. And on 3, imagine that your team just scored against that dreaded foe, okay? So on 3, we're going to do that. And we're going to be noisy this time. I want the guys on the stage to help me do the same thing. 1. I'm going to use this microphone. 1. 1. 2. Really noisy now. 3. That's better. That's better. And you know what? I got a picture. You can sit down now. I got a picture so I can go home and show my daughter that I got a standing ovation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for participating there. So I want you to think about questions. You've heard the introduction of the panelists. They're all extremely well qualified, a lot of experience here in Indonesia, and we're going to talk about Indonesia. That's where we are. So to start that, did all of you get the Indonesia Hotel Watch as part of your program package? It's a good piece of work, right? That's probably worth the price of admission 3 or 4 times over. Samantha and Fendi, can you stand up from HVS? And, I'm sorry, what's your name?
Irvan.
These 3 put that together, so put your hands together and say thank you to these guys. Now, you can't go yet. You can't go yet. Why are we talking about other destinations? Well, I think everyone else is going to talk about Jakarta and Bali. And we heard the government has a goal of getting to 20 million international arrivals by, what, 2019, right? And how many are we now?
10 million?
About 10 million, 9.4 last year, right? And expected to be 10 million this year. Okay, so 9.4 million last year. We have 5 years to go to get to 2019. So we are 10 million short, right? That means we have to grow by how many per year?
20%?
Yeah, About 2 million per year, right? And what have we grown so far? Last year, what? 500,000, 600,000, something like that. Pretty ambitious goal, but it's a good goal. In Singapore, you guys can sit down now. In Singapore, we did the same thing. We said, I'm from Singapore, I lived there 24, 25 years. We said we're gonna have 17 million arrivals by 2017. We're most probably not gonna make it. But what it did was put the bar high where the government had to support it with policies and funding and things like that, and we're going to get pretty close. So I think it's a good thing. The government's behind our industry, and to do that, to get to that number, it's not going to just be Jakarta. It's not just going to be Bali. It has to be some other destinations as well. So when we got the assignment with a title for the panel, I looked at the panel and I said, okay guys, I want you to talk about one market each. No more than 5 minutes, preferably 3, and share some of your knowledge with some of the people in the audience. So we're going to do that. It'll start as slow, but we'll roll from there. And Norbert, you're going to talk first about what, the escape market out of Jakarta and why he thinks that market's going to grow. We talked about international arrivals, but you know, that's 20 million or 10 million now versus 250 million. Like most countries, large countries, not Singapore, tourism is mostly about domestic tourism. That's important. So with that, Norbert?
My turn?
Your turn.
Wow, I thought we will never get to speak here. Thanks, Eric. Sorry, just kidding. Well, I would like to talk about a region which is referred to as Jabodetabek. Very difficult to say. Some of you Indonesians have definitely heard about it. For many of you, it might be completely new. It really describes the greater Jakarta area, and those are the letters of the cities surrounding. So Bo stands for Bogor, De stands for Depok, Ta for Tangerang, and Bek for Bekasi. The entire area, the greater statistical area of Jakarta, is around 30 million people. The guys from the IKEA, when they opened the IKEA shop in Tangerang, they said we picked Jakarta because it's a bigger market than the entire country of Malaysia put together, which is true. Just to give you a few ideas, Bogor has a population of 1 million people. That would put it together with, let's say, the city of Cologne in Germany. Bekasi has a population of 2.5 million people. That makes it bigger than my hometown Vienna or bigger than Hamburg. Tangerang has a population of 2 million people. South Tangerang, which is a separate city, has a population of 1.4 million people. And Depok has a population of 1.9 million people, which makes it as large in terms of population as Bucharest, for example. This market is growing and growing and growing. It's an immigrant magnet. There is Batavi, Sundanese, and Javanese living there. There's 65,000 expats living in the greater Jakarta area. Most of them are Chinese. 15,000 of them are Chinese, 10,000 Japanese, 8,000 Koreans. Us Bulles, Caucasians, we're actually in the minority, but we are the ones who drive the wine and beer revenue in the hotel, so don't forget that, please. The market has tremendous potential. I'm not saying there's no hotels. There's quite a lot there, but there's tremendous potential for more development, especially in the mid-scale, in the serviced residences, and in the budget segment. Part of that potential is supported or helped by the notorious traffic jams of Jakarta, where people really pick hotels close by their factory, close by their office, close by the area where they do business, and will refuse to travel into downtown Jakarta, no matter what attractions downtown Jakarta has to offer. Traffic just inhabits it.
Norbert, you talking about commercial hotels that are closer to the demand generators in those areas?
Yes, commercial hotels, yeah. And then you have also a part of a leisure and the MICE market, which is growing in the north, meaning Bogor, Central, that entire area. That's mostly leisure. But all the other areas that have potential, in my humble opinion, in that area around Jakarta alone, there's enough for another 100 to 150 budget hotels. Just to let you know, yeah, so if anybody in the mood to buy or build a budget hotel, give me a call.
Except he doesn't want you to build one in Bogor because he's the part owner of one in Bogor. So Bogor is probably, in your opinion, the most overbuilt market in the
Thanks for
region.
reminding me also to stay away from Bogor. It sucks, really. Yeah.
We're talking about around Bogor. Marc, you were going to talk about Pulau Seribu.
Yes, I think if I want to extend a bit the Jabodetabek, like Norbert mentioned, 30 million people living there, and you have a just beautiful island, just 1 hour, 2 hours boat from Jakarta, is the Seribu. Some people from Jakarta know about it, but I think it's quite limited, the awareness. But there is what we call a Seribu, is the 1,000 island. In fact, there is only 100, 110, okay? But out of it, some of them you can get it within 1 hour or 2 hours boat. I mean, this is really a sleeping beauty, okay? Just 1 hour, 2 hours from Jakarta, where you can spend a seminar, weekend, and all this. Today, it's totally undeveloped or poorly developed, some islands. So out of it, the 110, just for your information, there is 36 island which has been dedicated by the government of Jakarta because it belongs to the DKI. The DKI is the Jakarta. So 36 island is supposed to be developed for the recreation. Most of the rest is privately owned, house and all this. But today it's nearly fully developed. I mean, there's few resorts on some island. It's always packed during the weekend, but there's no proper infrastructure. Boat is expensive, difficult and all this. I think it's something which is, for me, sleeping. There is a need for nice professional resort, including, like you say, Aris and all this. But, I mean, there is really a reserve to be done, okay? To be developed. Also, the other aspect, I think, and today the government, with the new governor, Ahok, which is very concerned by this sleeping resort, okay? I think we push for the next 18 months, 2 years, to redevelop and change a bit the rules for the boat and all this, and to push some developer to really develop a proper hotel, proper resort with all the facilities in this place. I think it's a fantastic answer for the people living in Jakarta, which you go to Bali for leisure, beach and all this, is 1-2 hours Bali, but this one is just 1 hour boat, okay, and you are totally far away from the traffic jam of Jakarta. Some island during the weekend, like the Pulau Puri, which is just maybe 30 minutes or 1 hour boat, you see on the weekend is so super packed, okay? And there is market for all the segments. Some island, the nearest, will be perfect for economic hotel, but when you go a bit further, it can be a beautiful resort, not only for the weekend, but also for seminar. So I want to highlight this. I would like also to extend for another one island, which is a bit much further than this, which we don't mention among us, is the island of Bangka, Belitung Bangka. For the people that doesn't know, I really invite you to go there. I mean, the beach are fantastic. Okay?
Let's talk about Bangka and Belitung a little bit later.
Okay.
But really what these two are focusing on, besides the commercial aspect of the greater Jakarta area, is the fact that, you know, we heard earlier about the expanding middle class, the expanding traveling public. If you're in Jakarta and you want to go for a holiday, where do you go? I mean, you get on a plane, you go to Singapore and you shop, you go to Bali, you drive to Puncak if you're brave, because, yeah, you're in a parking lot on the way back. But the fact is, with that growing middle class, a lot of which is in that big urban area, the escape markets show a lot of great potential. And Norbert won't share with you the details, but I'd imagine his property is probably yielding about a 20% cash-on-cash return. So lower land prices, you get that, the MICE business during the week, or the commercial business if it's downtown Bogor or something like that, and the premium business on the weekend, and you can get yourself a nice little tidy return. Let's move to Bandung. Alex, you're going to talk about Bandung, and Bandung, in terms of international arrivals, the last 5 years probably is the second highest rate of return, or a rate of growth in the mid-20s. And with that, talk about Bandung a little bit.
Okay.
3 minutes, right, Alex?
Hello, can you hear me okay? Eric, thanks very much. Bandung, I was very lucky that I had the opportunity to open not just one hotel, but 2 hotels simultaneously within a mixed-use development, which is a theme park and a shopping mall on a 10-hectare piece of land. And there's a few plus points and there's a few negative points that I'd like to touch on to sort of put you up to date a little bit with Bandung. But basically the quality of luxury hotels in Bandung, there's not many. In the last 2 years, there's as many as 35 new builds in Bandung, and there's only 2 that you could say are in the 5-star segment, one being an Intercon and the other being a Crown Plaza. That's it. The rest is all 2-star, 3-star, 4-star. Now, that's a lot of hotels for a place like Bandung, and you'd have to ask yourself why. Well, we know that it's the 3rd largest city. We know that there's a commute of 100 kilometres, 120 kilometres from Jakarta to Bandung, which can take anything from 2 hours, 3 hours to 4 hours, depending, really. The traffic is quite congested, but it is a domestic getaway. At the moment, Bandung still enjoys a 93% segmentation of domestic business, followed by some Singaporean and Malaysian is about the only international business bar a little bit of Middle East market. So there was a fallacy that this international market would come for the shopping, which is the factory outlets and maybe some golfing, etc. But quite honestly, that's not really going to be the reason to build a hotel in Bandung, because you'd have to ask yourself the question, if you had the cash, would you build in Bandung? Now, if you didn't have that MICE component, definitely not. That's my honest opinion, especially with the amount of hotels that have recently been built. I really believe there is an oversupply already in Bandung, but there is still development. There's still a Pullman with a Pullman and an Ibis together that's still going to be built in about 2 years from now as well. Bandung is, as a standalone development, again, I wouldn't do it. As a mixed-use development that we have in Bandung, I would say that's a big draw card, because our shopping mall and theme park alone draws in about 1 million visitors.
Is that the theme
per
park?
year.
You
Yeah.
get an attendance
Yeah.
of 1 million?
Yep.
Good growth? What type of growth?
Yeah, so there is about like a 10% growth per year, and a lot of it is not what you imagine just in terms of leisure market, but it is also what, like an education market, where there's schools and also corporate team building and things like that as well. So think about it. There's not that many luxury hotels in Bandung. It is the 3rd largest city. Now, the plus point, okay, there's going to be a fast train, and that fast train should be completed by 2019. So already a lot of people are commuting using the existing old train at the moment, and that's quite a scenic journey, except you can't see out of the windows, where the new train will really follow the existing toll road. So here you've got a domestic market that you can draw MICE business. If you're lucky enough to put a bit of a mixed component to it to give it an additional draw card for your respective hotel, if you've got the fast train coming, then it still makes it viable to consider building.
Good, good. Let's get a little more exotic. Let's go to a tropical island. Let's go to a tropical island where there's a great wave break, or a couple tropical islands you're going to cover, right? Some great diving. James McBride, you probably heard he's with Nihiwatu. He's one of the owners of Nihiwatu, which is in Sumba. He's going to talk about, surprise, surprise, Sumba as well as Flores. And for those of you who don't know that property, its rate is about $1,600 a night, if I remember correctly. I don't know what some of the private hotels are doing, Bill, in Bali, but I don't know of a hotel that's doing a higher rate. James said he'll give everyone here 20% off if he picks the date you go from that rate, so 20%, it's still $1,300. So, James, talk about Flores and Sumba for us, please.
Firstly, thanks so much for having us. Sumba, the journey of Sumba, an extraordinary journey. I was always in the mainline corporate world between New York and Singapore, and was asked to come and visit Sumba by my partner, Chris Birch, about 3 years ago. I had no idea where Sumba was, and I'm sure probably half of you in this room don't know where Sumba is either. You think it's Sumbawa, and you all get very confused. So Sumba is 400 miles east of Bali. Anyone know how much bigger Sumba is than Bali? Any ideas?
10 times, just guessing.
10 times.
Sumba's 2.5 times bigger than Bali as an island, so it's an absolutely huge island with 550,000 people on it. Very, very tribal. People still wear swords every day, and a lot of general life is handled in a tribal manner. It is very much, it feels like Africa and Asia, and our resort, Nihiwatu, is the only luxury resort on the island. So it's an amazing story. I think from an investment perspective, as I observe over the last 3 years, the changes in Sumba, the changes are happening at lightning speed. For an example, when we first purchased it, you could only get there by charter pretty much. All the guests had to come for 7 days, and that's how it operated. Subsequently now there's a Bombardier jet that flies every day with Garuda, Wings flies, and there's probably a third flight going to be coming on. The whole airport is being redone, the infrastructure, the roads is getting improved all the time. And I can honestly say that it's probably short of a land rush going on with people buying land in all parts of Sumba, where there's no water, there's no electricity in most places, and it boggles my mind how land prices have escalated from probably 25,000 a hectare to 100,000 a hectare in the last 2 years. The vision of what people want to do with it, I'm not quite sure, but it's sort of a euphoria has been created with even higher prices in the various, let's say, if you could call it a CBD, around Tembalaka Airport and Wanapu Airport, where there also really don't exist any proper hotels. There are no brands, and there are some homestays and various other sort of local hotels. From a developmental perspective, I can instinctively feel that many of your hotels, and that the opportunity is just around the corner. And I just know it. You can't get on a plane. And you ask yourselves, what is happening? What is driving? Why is it moving at this speed? It sort of has become a phenomenon in a way, because it's not the economy is not putting out too much. Tourism is, for local tourism is extremely small. All of our guests are international. We truly have virtually zero customers from Indonesia, which is something we need to change. It's a huge market in Jakarta, and certainly a market that can afford that, and that's got to grow. And I just think it is about to, I can feel the change happening. And I think a part of our development, we're going to start our second resort in Sumba. We have the courage and belief to do it, because what it offers from a, let's say, a geographical opulence perspective is like nowhere else.
So James, what you're talking about in Sumba, the driver, they're kind of two, why you have an interest there. One, it's accessible primitivity, and the land price allows you to make money from investing in a hotel there. Are those
land price advising, but cost of building luxury and construction is exorbitantly expensive. And I think that's from, Oman have had a site very close to us, Alila have a site very close to us, and in having let's say the vision and courage to be able to do it, you need an investor who's very bold and who can hang on for a long period of time to do that. It's really you're blazing a trail. Yep. And it's just, I think that's probably the biggest thing we underestimated is the cost of development. Everything comes in a truck, everything comes in a barge, and when you start calculating and figuring it all out, it becomes a fairly ambitious task.
Good. Let's move from the tropical, idyllic island where everything's primitive and that's the attraction, to another island, one of the 17,000 whatever, Bintan. And Bintan's interesting because it is attracting about 4% of the international visitation to Indonesia. And, we're looking at how do we go from 10, right, to 20. And one of the markets that has to be a driver of that engine, or that could be, is Bintan, because it has the land, it has properties coming up, it has good accessibility, the infrastructure's in place. And Gonzalo, you were going to talk about Bintan for 3 minutes or so?
Sure. So for us, Bintan is really one of the destinations that we think is going to be, it has the potential to become a mass destination in Indonesia. Bintan is an island located around 50 kilometers southeast of Singapore. It's bigger than Singapore. Again, it's like around 2 to 3 times bigger than Singapore. but only receives around 700,000 visitors per year. There are 300,000 people living in the island, and at the moment, where we see the potential is in the north part of the island. There's a number of developments. There were no hotels open for the last 10 years until the Sanjaya opened last year. We saw the potential of the island around 2 years ago, and finally we signed a management agreement for a hotel in the northeast part. It's an area called Berakit that will be linked to Singapore by ferry. Nowadays, the market is mainly Singaporean. There are Chinese, South Korean, and Japanese going there, but it's kind of difficult to reach Bintan. You have ferry connection from Singapore, which is actually quite convenient, but flights are actually difficult to find. There's a new airport under construction that will open hopefully next year. It's located in the north part of the island, so this is going to make things much easier for everybody. We think that the island can actually develop and handle all the new projects coming. It has an average room rate of around, for luxury hotels, is around 250 Singapore dollars. So that would be 180 US, more or less. The occupancy is still very low. We are talking about 50% more or less. High seasonality also. July, August, very good. December also. And then during the monsoon times, occupancy is actually very low. So we think the moment they finalize the airport, they also need to improve road transportation in the island. Then after that, with the new arrival of hotels and new attractions coming, I think it can become a very important destination.
Yeah, that's a good point you make at the end. I was about to disagree with you because I think the access to Bintan, at least from Singapore where I am, is pretty darn good. I mean, you even have ferry terminals close to where your site is that they haven't started service to. And, you know, I lived in Hong Kong for 3 years, and the route between Hong Kong and Macau, there's so many ferries going back and forth, you can add those ships very, very quickly. So I think the access problem isn't really an issue. I mean, you have one of the best airports in the world 50 minutes away. Well, you have to drive from the airport to the ferry terminal in Singapore, which takes 10 minutes. But I think the access is pretty good. I think the road systems are fantastic within the early part of the BTDC development. Enough talking. We want you guys to ask some questions. Now, Marc Steinmeyer, he's too young to be a legend, but he's almost a legend. I mean, he's done so much development in this country, first with Accor and now with his own company, Tauzia. Fantastic knowledge. Norbert, your company, an Indonesian brand, really started as an extension of Aston, the Hawaiian brand, but now is truly an Indonesian company. They have 100, 101, 103 hotels open, about the same amount in the pipeline. They're now an Indonesian brand that's going offshore. They're in Malaysia, working on the Middle East properties. So we're exporting from Indonesia, our hotel brands, offshore now, which is good. Great knowledge on the panel. So how about a question? Does anyone have a question for anyone on the panel? Raise a hand. Claudia, you have a question, don't you? Claudia, we were talking last night, and Claudia's family has a hotel in Jambi. So I'm going to ask Claudia's question. Do any of you guys know anything about Jambi?
I do.
Norbert has a hotel in Jambi?
Jambi market is tough. Huh? It's not. We have an Aston here. We are running year to date 47% only. So not that good, but we are rate leader with.
Wait a second. Is your hotel doing better than that, Claudia?
Well, yeah.
Can you give Norbert some hints on how to do better in Jambi?
We are not the occupancy leader. I'm not claiming that. Yeah, we are the rate leader, but there's a Bali Grand Hotel is the occupancy leader with around 60%, but the average rate is only 370,000, so that's a 2-star level average rate. In an overall, the project in Jambi is a 4-star. Aston cost the owner about 88 million to build. He's currently making roughly $1 billion a month, so he's going to have a return of investment of around 7.5 years. not including cost of capital, which I do not know. So it's okay lah, yeah, but it's not a great market. A budget hotel, a really well-designed, clean, efficient, 100-room budget hotel would do very well in Jambi, but I would not advise to add any more 4-star or wannabe 4-star inventory into that market.
Okay. Anyone else have a question? Rio, was that your hand going up? You made a bid? No? Anyone have a question? Come on, someone. Serena, you have a question, don't you? Come on. Help me out. I'm dying here.
I guess in relation to accessibility in Indonesia, and Indonesia being made out of many, many different islands, I guess there's one panelist who had mentioned earlier that there's going to be a lot of work done on airports, and as well as, and that most of the seats which are provided are via local airlines. How does that impact, I guess, all these growth that we're talking about in terms of opening up new destinations in Indonesia, given the track record of, air accessibility in Indonesia? I think a lot of the discussions here, were referring to, locations, close to Jakarta or within driving distance. But what about, in terms of more of the locations outside which require, getting on a plane to get to?
Who would like to try that?
Well, I think for Bintan, this is a very important point. The new airport can handle around 3 million arrivals. Bintan at the moment is very low on Indonesians. There are around, I think it's 3 flights a day from Jakarta to Bintan Island. It's easier to actually fly to Singapore and then take the ferry to Bintan. So this is going to change quite a lot when the new airport has, let's say, 20 flights a day with Jakarta. We are talking about a potential market of 30 million people, as Norbert said. But there are other destinations. You can open Surabaya to Bintan, Jogja to Bintan, or even from Makassar, which is some routes that are actually not working now. So for us, the Indonesian market is going to be the key to actually bring Bintan to be an important destination.
Serena, thank you for asking that question. Serena is on the development team from Starwood. She's absolutely the best developer in Asia. So if you have a property, go talk to her. See, if you ask a question, I'll do a commercial for you. Does anyone else have a question? I have a commercial. Oh, Rio has a question.
You have to promote me now. Okay. The question is, I just want your view on the title of this session is Diversification of Destination. But I think it's not necessarily only the destination that needs to be. Once the destination is established, I think one of the key things, the challenge in Indonesia is actually rates. I think occupancy, pretty much in most places we get the occupancy, but the rates are the challenge. Therefore, you need to tip the balance between domestic and actually foreign. I think that's, I don't know, maybe you can comment on that, because getting the destination is one thing, but you need to also get foreigners to come to those destinations.
Can I?
James? Where did I hear that? Alex.
I'll just very quickly say something about that, Rio. As you know, we've just opened our new hotel in Bali. Many ways to skin a cat, right? And I just think that it's not just about rate or about the demographic, whether it's international or domestic. I think it's about your threshold of revenue in order to cover your cost. I think that's the better way to look at it these days so yes, you're right, there's a destination, there's a positioning, there's a brand, there's a hotel, all of that sort of thing, right? And hopefully you stick within a budget of that as well, right? But, I think there's a different way to look at it, and I just look at it now being once you've covered your base costs, so make sure you just have base business, just put it that way. Forget about what segment that may be. So you've covered your costs, then you start to dissect the rest of your segments, which will determine what sort of rate positioning you're going to end up with. And what I've learned is that by splicing and dicing more, there's less segments than there were when we were a lot younger. It's actually a lot easier these days, and especially with all the rate parity through the OTAs and so forth. So what I learned very quickly is that the domestic market actually generates you the highest rates at a higher level of hotel. Now, at lower level hotels, I'm not too sure. But you've got to have a draw card in order, if you can capture, let's just say the 240 million Indonesians, there's 10 million of those that really are very wealthy.
Good point.
And if you can move them around into your hotel, then they're going to pay, 2.5 million like that.
Yeah, Alex is one of the leaders in the upmarket side of the business, coming from Melia, right? And now with the trans hotels. By the way, the commercial for Rio, he's the second best developer in the room. He's with a Corp. He runs development for a Corp for Indonesia, Malaysia, and other stuff. And he's the best looking guy in the room, and his Japanese is the best in the room. Norbert, you want to add to Alex's?
I just wanted to add to Alex, we also in Bali, our average rate from the domestic market is higher than from the German, the French, and the English markets. Yeah, yeah.
Good. Next question. Bill Barnett. Oh, wait, ladies first. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask the panel about what about your opinion about Makassar and also Sulawesi overall?
So we moved to Sulawesi and Makassar specifically.
I think Marc would have a good,
Okay.
Marc would
Okay,
definitely
so Makassar first. I think there's still a bit of room of development. Overall Indonesia, on many of these secondary city or prime city like Makassar for the North Sulawesi, is quite also overdeveloped, in my opinion. Okay, I think there still may be a room for maybe on the budget segment, but also maybe for 1 or 2 4+ upscale hotel in Makassar, because it's one of the third or major city or fourth major city in Indonesia. That is for Makassar. After for the rest, Toraja and all this for leisure, I think he has been a bit left behind the last 10 years. He was quite popular in the 90s. I haven't been there. It's beautiful. I guess there is many local hotel in Toraja. Maybe there's not so many branded in Toraja. So I think there is a room of development for international chain in Toraja. Manado has been really overdeveloped, I think, over the last 5-6 years. We were supposed to develop pop hotel on this. I said to the owner, just better wait. Okay? Just wait 2-3 more years. Okay? I think it's really overdeveloped. Okay? That is for the North Sulawesi, Manado.
Makassar is also getting full. Huh? There's 11 projects in Makassar right now. There's a Premier Inn coming. There's a big Novotel. There's a Spell Grand coming. There's a big Ibis on the line. It's getting tough in Makassar.
Yeah. I think if I can add, globally in Indonesia, most of the city, which I would say secondary or third city, are most of them a bit overdeveloped. If there is a window to develop, a city which 4th or 5th, okay? Around, for example, we're talking about Sumatra, along the road to Sumatra, the city which I don't even know the names. There's some local hotel with sometimes the average room rate is much higher than Jambi, Pekanbaru, and all this. But nobody know about it, and they're fully booked. Okay? That this kind of city, small, but the big traffic by car, by bus, and all this, you might develop. All the rest of the city overall is quite overdeveloped. Okay? And the only one can be developed, like mentioned Norbert, is Jabodetabek. We still have the room for development.
Thanks, Marc. That question was asked by Ibu Fazia from the Makassar Hotel Network. For those of you who do not know Ibu Fazia, she is the smartest woman in the room. Next question, Bill Barnett.
James McBride, tell us something about your new second project in Sumba.
So we've got 120 acres, about a 15-minute drive from Nihiwatu, and it's called Niyoka, and it's formulating into probably a small, it's going to be a 12-room adjunct to Nihiwatu that focuses purely on the wellness space. It's on 3 beaches, and it currently occupies the space of the Spa Safari, which is an outing that we have. The experience at Nihiwatu is all based around the private wave, where we have 10 surfers, and then waterfalls, equestrian, and the Spa Safari is where that land is, which we've just finished building the first mock-up villa, and we'll continue with that development, after we fine-tuned it.
Thanks for the question, Bill. Bill, by the way, is from C9 Hotel Works, which is the region's top consultancy group, specializing really in the residential side of resort development. Pretty good hotel guy, too, and has a good palate for wine. So we have a question over, I know you, Javier, so I'm going to have to go down here first. You just want me to say something nice about you. There we go.
Bali being the most well-established international tourism island in Indonesia, are there lessons to be learned for each of your respective islands? Lessons to be learned from Bali, positive or negative?
Good question. Brief answers. James, we're going to go right back to you.
Sure, many lessons. There are many things that I wouldn't want to transport to Sumba from Bali. However, the iconic status of the brand of Bali so that it's known would be the most important.
Alex, would you like to add to that one more?
Just supply and demand. I think that's one of the most critical. So, you know, what you've got now is, you know, a very soft market condition. And I was sharing with some of the guys earlier, you know, it's a real wholesalers market at the moment. They can bargain with so many hotels in this Nusa Dua region. It's unbelievable the rates that are being offered. So I think that's something very careful as you start to develop elsewhere. Just keep that in mind.
You know, Eric, just to add to that, I think as Bali evolves, if you always study other markets and hop-off points, and if you look at Hawaii as a market of where Honolulu was the only place that people went to in Hawaii, no one went to the Big Island, no one went to Kauai, no one went to Maui. Yep. And although we're many years behind that trajectory, I think the same evolution is going to happen here as everything on the outer stars develops. It's the same as happened in Puerto Rico and the Caribbean islands. It becomes a stop-off and people develop out, and this is a mature market now, and I think Honolulu, Puerto Rico, Bali will always maintain that status and will be a jumping-off point as you get deeper into the other areas.
Yeah, the urban center of that island paradise. That question was asked by Amanda, who's from the Viceroy in Ubud, one of the coolest hotels I've ever been to, and their dinners are great. I remember going to a Skal dinner there that was memorable in my brain. Very nice place. Another question, Ibu.
Thank you. My company have a lot of idle asset, but the idle asset is many in low aspect tourist area, such in Cirebon, Surabaya, and Semarang. What do you think about the opportunities about the business hotel in that area? Thank you.
Want to go first?
I'm sorry, I heard Cirebon. Did anyone pick up the other markets?
Yeah, Semarang and Surabaya, right?
Yep, Norbert, you win the right to answer this question.
Okay. It's really hard to just generalize it like that. I would have to see the location, pinpoint it on a Google map, and then I could give you some more information. But Cirebon, for example, is very difficult. There's an Aston there, it's underperforming. There's a Swiss Bell that just recently came in the market. It's not doing too well. The occupancy is around 50–55%. Semarang is totally overbuilt. Everybody who was making a lot of money in the garment industry wanted to diversify, and everybody started building hotels left and right. I would not do anything in Semarang unless it's a really strategic location and it's a budget hotel. We just opened the Faith recently, 2–3 weeks ago. It's doing very well. There's a Neo that's doing well. We have an Aston in Semarang that is not performing well. It's a 4-star. Surabaya is also a tough nut to crack. There's about 40–50 hotel projects that are actually being built right now. There's more than 60 EMBs that have been issued already. There's a lot of hotels in the downtown area, like the ex-Hyatt, which is now Bumi, or the Pullman, ex-Meritus, which are underperforming. They're lower than 30% occupancies. The new 5-star Ciputra is at 25–30% occupancy, so it's a really tough market. It really depends, again, on the Pacific location.
Yeah, that's a good point. Sometimes it's more than just the market, the location within the market. What I suggest you do, the guys in the panel will share the good and the bad with you. You know, a lot of what you read in the literature is all really positive. So that's why the cocktail reception is the most important session. Norbert,
I have to jump in here something. I don't want this to be misunderstood. Many of those cities are currently being There has been so much development going on, the demand hasn't caught up, but the demand will catch up eventually. We are on a midterm correction here. It also has to be mentioned that operating costs in Indonesia are very, very low. And even hotels with 60% occupancy only achieve GOP levels here are unheard of in other parts of the world. So you can still make a lot of money, even if a 60% hotel here in Indonesia.
Just watch your gearing. You know,
Yeah, but
12, 13% interest. That's an equity-like return. So watch your gearing. I'm going to let another person ask a question.
Eric, if I can say, I think really we need to insist, and I fully agree on the panel with Norbert. Overall, today, on most of the city today, it's worth not to build any new hotel today. I think it's worth to wait 3-4 years, like you mentioned, but don't need to build. I mean, the cost of construction is increasing, the interest rate is very high, the land is expensive, and the rate, like Rio told, is very low. So your return on investment, unless you are really lucky on the prime location, even that.
So I guess what he's saying is, let's end the conference now and go to the reception. And no, there's a lot of room for growth in the market. But what they're saying is, you know, supply, demand don't grow at the same rates. You don't add one room of supply to a market at one time. You add a box with a lot of rooms. And if someone added a box, other people can add for a box. And that's just the nature of hotel development. You have markets going through the cycles. So watch your cycles is what they're saying. They make their money from you building hotels and getting groups like them to help you. So listen to what they're saying. Next question, Javier, and then we have a question on the far side of the room. Okay.
It's actually very much in line with what Marc and Norbert are saying about overdevelopment. We come also from Europe. We have the experience of overdeveloped markets, and growth for hotel chains go through conversion of existing hotels. Some of these hotels are in prime locations, but they are tired, they are old, they need some investment. I see, and I want to know your view, what are the challenges when doing a conversion? Is sometimes the return on investment of that conversion worth enough? Because they need to throw a lot of money, but the rate increase is not that much. How do you see that? Second, just another...
One question only, we're almost out of time. And there are other hands up. So a quick answer on conversions.
I think if there is opportunity, yes, you're perfectly right, conversion, and I think over the next 18 months, 2 years, there will be property for sale. And then it will break down the price, and then it will be much more balanced, okay? So the people will get the opportunity to buy existing hotel. I'm sure that could be a good deal within the next 2 years.
Save your money, Javier. Sorry to cut you off. By the way, Ibu Cecilia is one of the smartest ladies in the room. I'm out of time, so I'm trying to squeeze in one more question before they pull me off. And Javier's Spanish is absolutely the best, and his hair is marvelous, too. Zia, ladies first, your question.
Well, I have a question because there are so many islands. You have so many opportunities for diversifying the experience. So my thought is there a tourist or a countrywide idea of developing totally new destinations, kind of destinate each island and turn that into unique opportunities? So you get foreign visitors, local visitors that want to go to particular places because of that specific culture, that specific activity you can do. I think branding destination for the islands are just as critical in order to develop new hotel developments.
That was almost like a David Keane rant, wasn't it? The branding lady talking. Zia's with Blink, which is a great interior design firm. She has the best looking boss that I know, Clint. I think she was making a point, which is a very relevant point. We are out of time. I have a fun question to ask. I'm really tempting fate by going to the lawyer again, but he helped me out before, even though he's wrong. It's going to be quick, right? Okay, Mr. Ryan.
Okay, my question is to James. James, you said that your island's a little bit like Africa in Asia. So I'm just wondering how comfortable you think Alex would feel in his zebra suit.
Perfectly comfortable.
Perfect, he'd fit right in. Okay, we are out of time. One quick question for each of the panelists before we go, and thank you for playing with us. That was good. One question. The tourism industry in Indonesia, think about that, and think of a song that best describes the tourism industry in Indonesia. Norbert.
Do I have to sing it?
Please don't.
No,
Please don't.
thank you so much. I'm picked the title from a movie theme, Ennio Morricone, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
The good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah. Alex, do you have one?
Yeah, I'm really positive. Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Somewhere
It's
over the
one.
rainbow.
Yeah, that's the one.
You going to sing it?
No.
Good.
Do, 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 do.
Gonzalo.
No, for me, Indonesia will always be the sound of the gamelan sound in our hotel rooms.
Marc said he wasn't going to play this game with me, but do you have one?
So for me, being French, so La Vie en Rose from Grace Jones. I mean, it's very romantic. Indonesia is very emotional, okay? Somehow we're far away from the reality, but at least we have all this emotion.
Thank you. And James?
So, Stairway to Heaven.
Stairway to Heaven. There you go. That's the great way to end our session. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for playing with us, and please thank the panelists.